Driving it home with Patti Vasquez, Patti Vasquez.
From global conflicts to greenhouse gases, the folks refusing to wear masks says, and politicians getting caught grabbing asses says, she's driving it home with Patti Vasquez.
Hello, listeners. Love the theme song, but unfortunately, I am not Patti Vasquez. My name is Ken Mejia-Beal, and I am going to be driving it home with you today. And I know some of you are home already, but let's metaphorically drive home together. So, Ken Mejia-Beal, I've been on a couple of times. I'm the treasurer for Youth Outlook. I'm on the board for Victory Fund, the largest LGBTQ political organization in America. And I love coming to talk to you as much as I can. So I know today we have a lot of really great guests, and we have a lot of not so happy topics that you are more than welcome to call in to discuss at 773-763-WCPT. That is 773-763-9278. But I know we just got out of the weekend. I'm sure, like myself, you watched a lot of news, got a lot of X feeds and Blue Sky feeds, and hopefully you guys moved over to Blue Sky, Twitter updates, Facebook feeds, and the world can be grim. So I want to start off with something happy. I went to Texas this weekend, which I will talk about a little bit later. But what I realized is so many folks are traveling with their pets now, and I didn't realize it was as popular as it is. And I was entranced walking through the airport and seeing all these puppies, and I even saw a couple of cats, and that made me happy, which shows you how grim all the news was this weekend, that seeing cats and puppies made me happy. So now we get down to the not-so-happy stuff. I'm sure that we all know about President-elect Trump's plan to militarize immigration. Deportation, I should say. Very scary. And that is also why I'm so happy to be here today, because in these times where things can be grim, it's good to know that we have each other. And it's good to know we can lean on each other, talk to each other, and be supportive of each other, which is why WCPT 820 AM Progressive Radio Heartland Signal is important. You are not alone in your fears, in your doubts, in your grimness. Something that I recommend doing, and I shouldn't say I recommend, my therapist told me I needed to start doing it because I was going a little cray-cray, is take 5 minutes a day. Step outside and allow yourself to live in your worst fears. And then you set a timer. And then when that 5 minutes is over, you step back in your home or step back into your workplace and you let it go. So when I first did this, I've been doing it for a week now. I first did it, and it's okay to laugh at my pain because it's kind of funny. I did the sitting in it for 5 minutes, the alarm went off, and then I could not get out of it, and I ended up texting my therapist going, what have you done to me? I'm stuck in this. I went too deep. So we had to reset and figure out how far into the darkness I can let myself go and bring myself back out. So highly recommend taking 5 minutes of every day to allow yourself to sit in those negative feelings and then bringing yourself out of it with something good. So going back into your home, going back into the car, listening to a feel-good song or doing a feel-good dance or whatever makes you feel good that is legal and ethical, go for it. Something else that has really helped me this weekend get through a lot of things is walking around outdoors. And we'll once again talk about that later. I was in Texas. And I know Texas gets a bad rap, but I was in Austin, Texas. I had a great time. It was 75 degrees, did a lot of walking. I walked everywhere, and it got my mind off of things. So if you're out there listening, I would like to know, A, what's on your mind, and B, how you're allowing yourself to get through this. And if your answer is breaking stuff, I'm okay with that as long as you're breaking your own stuff. And you can call me at 773-763-WCPT. That is 773-763-9278. And for everyone watching on Facebook, hello, in Heartland Signal, thank you for joining. As we get into the week, I want everyone to be mindful of one thing, though. And this also helps me get out of the funk that I'm in. Thanksgiving is coming around the corner, and nothing you eat from midnight until midnight will count. Nothing. I am not a doctor. Do not take my food advice, but it makes me feel better at night knowing that nothing I eat on Thanksgiving will count this year, and nothing I drink will count this year. I believe we have a caller. We have Jim from Chicago. Jim, how's it going?
Just grand. I'm just thinking about my circumstance. Since the 5th, which is Guy Fawkes Day, and when John Gerard and Guy Fawkes almost blew up the Parliament, they missed by eyelash. Anyway, 1605. But with this election, I wake up about, just like I'm in jail, like I'm in political prisoner. I'm a political prisoner, and I wake up and I go, "Oh my God, that's right. This is maniac is the president." Yeah. I kind of look at him for 4 years, and not only 4 years, but the absurdity of it. Yeah. I mean, he's got people absolutely their brains scrambled. I mean, I talk to people on the street. I mean, these people are scrambled. I don't know what to say. How we're going to survive 4 years with this guy? I don't know how I'm going to survive 4 years. I have no idea. I would have to take off at some point. I'm thinking about Guadalajara, somewhere. Well, I got to get out of here because I can't look at the news and I can't listen to anything. You know, well, I'm in complete seclusion. Jim,
I think you should definitely visit other places during this next 4 years, and also, I don't know if you heard the 5-minute thing. It really helps. Allow yourself to sit in it for 5 minutes, but then you got to bring yourself out of it. That's the hard part, Jim, is bringing yourself back out of it. But I know you can do it.
You're a young guy. If I lived in Barnes and Shep, I've been, I mean, my God, you can only fool yourself, you can only fool yourself so much. The point is, what's really bizarre now is you've got people who are like brain dead. I don't know how to describe it. I mean, they see things on TikTok. Everything's on TikTok. If they see, immigrants killing people, stabbing people, like, oh, look at this, Trump will get rid of that, Trump will get rid of that. Or it's just absurd things. And not only that, but it's hard to find a rational human being. But anyway, good luck to you every 5 minutes.
5 minutes a day, Jim. Sit in the grief. Thank you for calling, right, Jim. Bill. I'll talk to you soon.
Take care, Bill.
You too.
You too.
Okay, we have another caller, Michael from Chicago. Michael, how's it going?
Oh, pretty good.
Good.
Now, I'd like to talk about this TIF program in Chicago.
Let's go with it.
TIF. Now, most Chicagoans have never heard about TIF, but there's a lot of money there, about $1.5 billion, $1.5 billion of money just sitting in TIF accounts called excess TIF, not being used, and they're owned by the city government. There are tax money from the property tax. Now, TIFs have a long history, and the city government is strapped for money right now. The schools need money, and the city needs money. And we should not raise property taxes. We should not take out a high-interest loan. We should use the TIF money in the kitty there. It's in the banks, just sitting there. The TIF money is for economic development. On the maps, there's 150 TIF organizations in Chicago, TIF districts, and they're by geography. They're usually along streets, and they collect a property tax from the neighborhoods, the property tax, and some of it they spent for commercial development. TIF does build buildings. It gets rid of slums. That's true. It gets rid of blight. That's the purpose of it, and it's done a good job in the loop. But for many decades, TIF was used to get money from the outlying areas, the north side, the south side, the west side, and pour that money into the loop to erase poverty, slums in the south side of the loop. But that's been done over 2 decades, and now the loop, there is no more blight in the loop. The loop is beautiful now.
Right.
So now we got to use that excess TIF money. There's still a lot of it accumulating in TIF accounts. We should use it where we really need it now for our schools and for our city government. And the hypocrisy of this thing is the mayor, it's a tough job, and I think he had a good past history as county commissioner, but he's making a mistake on this thing, bringing up a property tax. He can make a mistake, and I'm glad to see that aldermen have some backbone, some independence, and some contributing to making things better. The aldermen, it's their responsibility to talk about TIP. They say they don't want to raise the property tax, but they have to find an alternative. Now, the Chicago Teacher Union, they're willing to talk about TIF. They're talking about TIF because they want to raise, it's in their self-interest, but they think they're entitled to a raise. So I would say all patriotic Chicago people should go to Google, go to YouTube, and study TIF. TIF is on Google and 20 articles. TIF is on YouTube, 20 videos, and they're very, very good. And then if we believe that TIF money is being just stored there in the banks and not being used, we should go to our aldermen and demand that they talk about TIF and use the money now.
Thank you.
For our city government.
Thank you for sharing that with us, Michael. And please check out those YouTube videos that Michael's talking about. Lots of information on TIF, Google. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Michael. Before we go to break, I want to share tomorrow on Choose Views. Richard will talk to author and historian Michelle Duster. Choose Views with Richard Chu. That is a tongue twister. Weekdays from 6 to 8 a.m. on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal. I will be back very shortly with my friend Councilwoman Leslie Sadowski Fugitt.
There's no better way to defend democracy in front of your fascist Republican friends than with a cold progressive beer from the Minocqua Brewing Company of Wisconsin. So head on over to Beer on the Wall in Schaumburg, Doty Liquors in Elmhurst, Captain Jack's Beverages in Worth, or the Wilmette Market to pick up a 4-pack or couple 2-3 of MAGA Tears IPA today. Don't forget to drink and vote responsibly.
You're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez on WCPT 820.
Welcome back. I'm so used to being a co-host. I was looking over for Patty to kick me off, and I said, oh, no, it's just me. We are getting Councilwoman Leslie Sadowski Fugitt on the phone from Downers Grove, Illinois. But really quickly, tomorrow from 2 to 5 p.m., Joan will be talking to Michael Kelly, professor at law of Creighton University, Julian Spector, senior reporter at Canary Media, Deborah Douglas, director and faculty member at Northwestern University's Medill School of Journalism, and Heartland Signal's Rich Urberwin will have 3 stories you might have missed from our digital newsroom. So don't forget to check out Joan Esposito live, local, and progressive weekdays from 2 to 5 p.m. Central on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal. Joan, love Joan. And now we have Councilwoman Leslie with us. Hello, Councilwoman. How are you?
Hey, Ken. I'm great. How are you doing?
Fantastic. How's your evening going?
Just doing a puzzle with my daughter, so it's going pretty well.
Awesome. So I'm number one, for all of our listeners, I have to share that Leslie is one of my personal best friends in the world, but she's here because anytime we talk about local politics, I always get on my soapbox and talk about how it's so important and how we have so many what is a politically correct word that will not get me fined? We have so many bottom feeders that get off starting at the local level, and they build these war chests, and then we cannot stop them later. So, I want to say you are one of the best at what you do, and I'm not just saying that because I like you.
Thank you.
No, you're welcome. But I want to touch on a little bit the rise of extremism at the local level and what you're witnessing within the Downers Grove, Illinois area.
Sure. A lot of this felt like, of course, it all got worse during the Trump era, where it became acceptable to start at a level 10 in terms of aggression, rather than starting at a 2. But I will say that the post-COVID world, I feel as though we're really seeing a rise in civility in most of the service industries. I work in the healthcare industry, and we're certainly seeing a rise in incivility and aggressiveness in hospitals, violence against staff. I've talked to some local business owners in Downers Grove, and they've seen it, with their wait staff. And we've certainly seen it at a local level at our government. I will say the hardest part of the village that's been hit so far is probably our public library. It appears that a lot of these folks are really targeting our areas of education and learning. So it started with the anti-masking in the school districts during COVID, but it rapidly became something completely different and morphed into an anti-LGBTQ, anti-immigrant, anti-lower socioeconomic status tirades. And so our library has really taken the brunt of that.
Right.
We were supposed to have a drag queen bingo in 2022.
I was just going to bring that up. I was just going to bring that up.
And it was an event that had been planned with the youth at Youth Outlook as a joyful celebration for National Coming Out Day, because we spend so much time when we talk about the LGBTQ plus community, as you know, and it is all just the doom and gloom history. Yes. And these youth just wanted to feel joy and have a moment of love for themselves. And unfortunately, because somebody did mail a bullet to the sheriff's department, the library thought it was in the best interest of the youth to cancel. And since then, we have just had to deal with a nightmare scenario of people, again, being the incivility during our library board meetings. They don't tend to bring it to the council as much as they bring it to the library board. And I do believe that part of that is because we had a library board president who was a woman of color. And they felt emboldened to treat her in a way that they would never treat our white male mayor.
Of course. And that kind of piggybacks on a lot of the built-in prejudices that we see kind of erupting all over the place.
Yep.
Well, because something you're kind of describing, and this probably shows that you're great at your job and have a high tolerance, but you sound very calm. And I, as a person that I don't do your job, it seems a lot and very tedious. So when you're going about and you are thinking or talking to friends about running for office or getting involved, how does this discourage other people from getting involved? Like, is it hard to find people that want to be yelled at every Tuesday night?
Sure. I mean, it truly is. It truly is a difficult sell. So right now I'm the only female on council, and we are all cis het white people. And I have talked to friends who are in different demographics, and it is incredibly difficult to find someone who already feels as though they are a target to put themselves even more so in front of the firing line to be someone who is an elected official. So it is getting more and more difficult for good people to step up when they see the kind of hate that you get when you stand up to this type of extremism. I took 2 days of Dan Proft hits after we removed a library board member, and you don't quite expect to see that at the local level. Not that it is acceptable at any level, because in my opinion, it is not.
It isn't.
But at the local level, you really are just another neighbor, and all of the decisions that you are making are directly impacting you in the exact same way that they're impacting everyone else. And so when I talk to folks, I mean, first, you have to make sure that they have a thick skin, because I don't want to set somebody up for failure, to be in a position where, they thought they were going to do something good, and now all of a sudden they're taking all of these hits. So I'm honest with folks when I'm discussing some of the things that I've experienced, but also I'm always happy to share any of the wins that we have. In 2019, I never would have thought that Downers Grove would have a pride proclamation, but here we are. I've been fighting for us to have an environmental sustainability plan for 5 years, and we're finally moving forward with that.
Congratulations.
So thank you. There are some really wonderful things that you can do for your community at these levels, but you do have to be able to be someone who can separate out that anger that people have at either systems or other groups, wherever that hate has been fostered, and know that you are in this for the best interests of your community and to move it forward. And sometimes it can be exhausting. This is probably the first year I've ever kind of sat down at night and wondered, why am I doing this? But I just remember all of those moments when I'm at a meeting and somebody comes up to me afterwards and says, thank you so much for sticking up for, X, Y, or Z, or for making us feel seen. Those are the moments that keep you going, because if somebody like me is not in it, then who is going to take my place? And,
it's something that a lot of folks do not realize when we get outside of large cities, Chicago, New York, LA, the pay that you guys receive is dismal, if that's a fair word to use. It's not paying the bills. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It's really a labor of love of community, or a labor of I hate certain people in the community and I want to punish them. It can be one way or another. Because I can tell that you love the community. How do you balance these conversations with folks that don't necessarily have your same intentions, debating wise, or just getting things done?
Sure. I always start at least I try to give people the benefit of the doubt. So in terms of talking with residents who may disagree with some of my views or values, for example, in the library board, there are a couple of areas where I think that we could examine how to do better, whether it be the way that we put our books into groupings or what we actually do end up bringing into our library. And so, I can have a conversation with residents who might not agree with me on some of the other issues and say, I still value our LGBTQ community and think that needs to be part of our programming. But here are some areas where I think that we can have a conversation where the library board can do better. And I know that everybody is dedicated to making sure that we get a trustee who will be kind of bringing those difficult questions to the forefront.
Got it.
While still having the best interest of the community in mind. When it comes to, working with other electeds who perhaps don't hold my values, or I certainly have colleagues who do not believe that it is our responsibility to do more than police, fire, public works that bear core minimum. I'm of the opinion that we are the leaders in our communities, and we can show that we are leaders by leading with the values that we want to see in people. And so if there is an incident, unfortunately, that I'm sure that many of the listeners have heard about that happened at a Panera in Downers Grove.
I was going to let you bring it up.
Who is wearing a Palestinian hoodie was attacked by... At least it was not a Downers Grove resident. It was a Darien resident, and she was charged. So it is obviously nobody has been convicted yet. So She has been charged of actually 2 felonies for hate crimes. I think that's an important first step, and our village very deliberately made a statement that type of hate, that type of behavior and language is not who we are in Downers Grove. And I believe that we as leaders need to be making those statements on a regular basis. And because all of the small things that the library has faced, a woman of color being screamed at and told she needs to take a Valium in the middle of a meeting, just the lack of decorum that we have seen. Unfortunately, all of those small allowances, when we legitimize that behavior, it all adds up to a point where people then feel emboldened that they can take these actions at a business. So I personally think that every time any of these small items come up, we need to be speaking boldly and with confidence that this type of behavior is not our value set in Downers Grove, and that none of our leadership is going to stand for that.
I love what you just said, because I've mentioned this before and we've talked about it privately, but I don't believe that things happen serendipitously. I don't believe that someone just one day, and by this I mean 99% of the time, because there's always exceptions, but I don't believe someone just goes completely psycho in a Panera and starts attacking people. You know what? It starts with little comments here and there. It never starts with, and of course, everyone is innocent until proven guilty. I learned that from Law and Order. But there's a video out there, and feel free to Google it. It's not the best video. In those situations, how do we diffuse those situations?
I mean, I personally, through my employment, have taken a lot of bystander training interventions, and so there are various ways that folks can get involved. I am somebody who is not afraid of confrontation, and so if you are like me, you can try and divert the attention and divert the aggressor's attention away from the individual. There are other ways where you can support the individual after the fact. I know that there's been a lot of discussion about, what supports happened at the time. And I am hopeful that there were supportive people after the fact that were just afraid and a little bit shocked. But to go up to the victims of these incidents afterwards and make sure that they are okay, and to listen and be respectful of the ways in which those individuals think they can be best helped by a bystander. They may not be comfortable with confrontation, but we need to make sure that we are taking care of one another and supporting those who are experiencing all of these hateful incidents. So my suggestion is to first take a bystander training intervention, because they are very helpful. And then to really figure out for yourself what type of person you are. Are you somebody that's comfortable confronting the aggressor and trying to divert the attention, or are you somebody who is going to be that quiet support afterwards, or even simply stand next to the person and offer them support in that way? But I think it's important that we do something, because the more that we let these experiences go unchecked, the worse the behavior is going to escalate.
I 100% agree. If we can get in, nip it off at the bud, and just say, we don't, as my grandmother used to say, we don't do that here. We just simply, we don't do that here. Councilwoman, thank you so much for, number one, all of your hard work, especially in the realm of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Thank you for making diversity, equity, and inclusion a verb. I sincerely appreciate that. You are great at it, and I value your position in Downers Grove, and I also value your position in my personal life. You're the best. So thank you for joining us, and we're going to go to break. I'll be back in a sec.
Hey there, it's your guy Warren Price from European and U.S. Collision Repair, a division of Technocraft Body Shops. We specialize in automobile and truck repair as well as normal automobile maintenance. With our highly skilled technicians and environmentally friendly materials, we strive for quality. Call 773-248-1200. That's 773-248-1200 or EuropeanUS.com.
You're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez on WCPT 820.
Woo! Welcome back to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez. I am standing in for Patti. My name is Ken Mejia-Beal. Thank you for listening to WCPT Chicago's Progressive Radio, 820 AM, Heartland Signal. It is great to have you here. Just a couple of updates on some new podcasts. Driving at Home now has its very own podcast, two actually. Driving at Home full episodes and Driving at Home featured interviews. You can subscribe to one, or heck, subscribe to both. The podcast is available on, get ready, Spotify, Apple, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, and Amazon. Just search for Driving at Home with Patti Vasquez, or get the links on Patti's show page by visiting heartlandsignal.com and clicking on Patti's beautiful picture. And now, see, voice was upbeat, and now we're going to talk about some scary stuff. As you've probably heard, I have to get the voice right. President-elect Donald Trump. Every time I say that, I want to cry. But this is not my 5 minutes of sadness. So, has talked about dismantling the Department of Education, which, as the son of a Chicago public school teacher, is terrifying. Education is, in my opinion, the tool that you will need to get through life. Without proper education, you can have all the money in the world, but if you're not educated on how to use it, it doesn't matter. Nothing really matters without proper education in whatever field that you get into. So I want to talk about education, and I invited Kyle Stern to talk with us about education. Kyle Stern is the president of the Western Suburban Teachers Union, Local 571. He is very, very well informed on this topic. So we are in for, I don't know if I should say a trick or a treat, because I don't know what's happening. But Kyle, are we in for a trick or a treat? What are we in for?
I think we are in for a trick by the president-elect. I'm really, this is a man who spears and says things just off the top of his head, and he doesn't really think things through, in my opinion. And I think we're going to see that he's going to he makes a lot of promises, and he doesn't deliver on them, just infrastructure week and things of that nature. So go ahead, Ken.
Well, no, because I believe you, and that scares me, and I wish I didn't believe you. But the Department of Education, I mean, any kind of governmental department seems relatively important. The Department of Education, though, seems very important. So can you just talk us through, if that were to happen, what does that look like for our kids?
Well, it doesn't look good for our kids. We obviously want the Department of Education to survive, and we would love to have a great leader, just like our current Secretary of Education. But just to give you kind of a heads up of what the Department of Education does.
Yes.
So in most schools' budgets, 10% of the money that goes to a school is from the federal government. Okay, and that money is disproportionately relied on by red states. So the question is, who's going to fund kids with special needs in Alaska? What happens to poor kids in North Dakota, Montana, Kentucky? And how do we make sure funding is fair for those? President Trump talks about career opportunities, which is great, but how do we make sure there's actually funding for it if he wants to cut this department? So we are, we're in for some tough times if that's what goes through. And we talk about, protecting Title IX, to protecting diversity, equity, inclusion, anti-racism, that we need that the federal government kind of protects at this time. So we're going to probably see him, what I imagine we'll see is him nominate someone that is anti-education, just like we see his other picks are anti-whatever department they've been assigned to.
Whew, okay, so this is grim. I have a question that will probably not be positive. What about Title I, which I believe supports high-poverty K through 12 schools? Is that
correct?
Okay.
Title I, yes, correct. Title I is part of the Department of Education, and we need that money.
Yes.
Those students and teachers, they need that money. There are some teachers that are hired just based upon them being a Title I school, and so without Title I money, you're going to lose out on aides, you're going to lose out on teachers, and we already are, dealing with a teacher shortage and a paraprofessional shortage and an administrative shortage. Cutting people is not what we need to do.
So without Title I, what inevitably happens is the schools that need resources the most will more than likely be the first to lose them?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. Yikes. Okay.
That's why we got to be up for the fight. And luckily, I will say there are many people like me that when it comes to fight, flight, or freeze, I'm a fighter. So,
well, I know that's why you're here.
Yes. Yes.
I know you can't see me right now, but as I talk to you, and I've just caught myself, I am slowly sinking into my chair. So I'm back up because Yeah, I gotta be ready for the fight. The department also plays a key role in ensuring educational equity across the states by enforcing civil rights law. So this is kind of where the overlap of Trump's immorality crosses over into education, because what does that do for, in your opinion, LGBTQ students? If we have forced prayer in school, for example, what does that do to kids that might not be Christian? What does this look like for them?
I think it looks really awkward. It's what confuses me is that President-elect Trump talks about bringing it back to the states, and curriculum is developed already locally. So I don't know what he means by bringing it back to the states, because it's already there.
Right.
And, so he then talks about, we're going to bring it to the states, but I'm going to federally mandate prayer in school. So pick a lane. Which one are you? Are you going to give it to the states, or are you going to pick a lane and say, no, it's the federal government, we're going to make prayer in school? Obviously I believe that prayer in school is against the First Amendment.
I agree.
That is my stance on that. And, I'm sure there will be, talks and lawsuits that will be filed if that order is given.
Okay. Well, and I'm ready for that fight, because I have long said that my religion, or my lack thereof, is my business. And that's how it should be.
Yes.
Yeah. Like, it shouldn't be a public, in my opinion, it's a private thing. Higher education. What does this look like for higher education dismantling the Board of Education? Does it have any impact on higher education at all?
Absolutely. It has a huge impact on higher education. We're talking Pell Grants. What President Biden has tried to do with eliminating student debt. Those have been all through the Department of Education. And, President Trump-elect doesn't want that. So we're going to see people lose out on scholarships. We've already talked about we haven't talked about it. I know you and I have talked about it personally.
We talk about it a lot.
Yeah, we talk about it a lot. Not on the radio, obviously. Yes. But President Trump wants to go after schools that have diversity, equity, inclusion practices at the university level, and he wants to find them and then give that money to other schools. He's talked about white reparations, and it's absurd.
Whoa, I'm sorry. Could you repeat the last part? I want to make sure I heard you correctly.
Yeah, so he has talked about in his speech. He didn't say exactly white reparations.
Okay.
But it's clear that in his talking that he's talking about reparations for white people who have been adversely, there's this idea of, racism towards white people.
Okay.
And he's talked about giving them money to compensate for them being racist again, I don't know how this happens, but, people were racist against white people, according to President Trump.
Okay.
Elect Trump. And, he's talking about finding schools that have diversity, equity, inclusion, and then giving that money back to white people, basically.
Okay, so breaking that down, DEI is racist, and money will be given back to the white survivors of that said racism.
That is my understanding.
Got it.
Yes, that's my understanding. Makes no sense to me.
I shouldn't find this funny. I feel like I'm in the Twilight Zone. And it's not funny.
It's a bizarre situation. No. I mean, listen, Ken, if I get reparations, I'll give you some money, okay?
Please.
Please. Yeah. No, I mean, it's absolutely absurd. He lives in a different world than what we all live in, and
that is true.
Unfortunately, that's what we're dealing with here. So we will keep up the fight, and we will keep the anti-racist fight going. and we will do our best to basically block whatever he does that we think is not right.
And I'm happy we're on this road now. So Illinois has done a lot as a state to kind of protect ourselves from certain things. I know a lot of other states, Michigan, Wisconsin included, have done things to make sure that if the system fails, we have some kind of something. From your perspective, how strong are these safeguards that we have in place? Are they strong enough?
I think it depends again on what state you live in.
Okay.
I feel more confident living in Illinois than I would be in Alabama or Mississippi, because we have, we're a blue state,
yes,
and we've got wonderful legislators that I know that will fight for the rights of the historically marginalized communities. And I think, we are in a good position in Illinois. I'm not saying we're in a great position nationally.
No.
But locally, I think there are some safeguards that are in place in Illinois.
Well, that's good to know. And I want to, Kyle, now that you've gotten us all ready to fight by scaring the bejeebus out of us, I want to talk about. So thank you for that. This would be a great time to pop open one of those Minocqua beers. This fear is brought to you by Minocqua Brewing Company. As we move ahead, because what was not supposed to happen has happened. We are here now.
Yes. We're here.
What are folks like you doing to kind of ready us for the next 4 years, which will feel like 8 years, by the way? But what are you doing?
Yeah, okay, so one of the things I'm doing is I'm going to stay true to my values.
Yes.
I'm going to keep fighting the good fight. I'm going to take care of myself and my family and make sure that I'm rested, ready to fight. And, our values just aren't going to change because there's a new president. So we're going to keep the fight up. We're going to fight for the underprivileged. We're going to fight for the marginalized communities out there. We're going to fight for mental health resources for students. We're going to fight for anything that helps our students out. We are going to be there in the fight every step of the way. And when we see something that is not right, we're going to call it out, and we will use whatever means we need to fight.
Thank you so much for that, Kyle. And I will sleep better at night knowing that you are in the position you're in to help us keep education safe and equitable, which is also very important. Thank you so much for talking to me this evening, Kyle.
Well, thanks so much for having me, and hopefully I did well. And
you did great.
Talking to you again sometime in the future.
You did great. My therapist is getting a call tomorrow. You did wonderful.
Okay. Thank you. I'll go on screen for 5 minutes right now.
Thank you. And before we go to break, when we get back, I want to talk to you. So call now at 773-763-WCPT. That's 773-763-9278. Talk to you soon.
Patti Vasquez is taking your calls now at 773-763-9278. Driving it home with Patti Vasquez now on WCPT 820.
Welcome back to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez. It is me, Ken Mejia-Beal. We've had some really great conversations today. We had Councilwoman Leslie Sadowski Fugitt from Downers Grove, Illinois, talking to us about the importance of local elections and talking to us a little bit about Downers Grove resilience in the world of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we also just had Kyle Stearns, who for me is everything, all things education, from the Western Suburban Teachers Union. Boom. And we had a very scary conversation about what will happen if the Department of Education is dismantled and what we can do to stop it and how we have to be ready to fight. You know, I'm going to say this before we get into whatever is next, because I can't remember what's next. I'm not a psychic. We have got to be ready to fight. And that is going to be a driving theme for the next 4 years, is we have to be ready. And it's not a question of, will there be a fight? It's going to be a question of, are you ready? And I hope that you're ready. And I and we'll talk about this later when we talk about my trip to Texas. But as I get older, I'm a very proud Democrat. I've become a lot more progressive as I've gotten older. But the one thing that I wish we could go back to in America is, instead of arguing about Democrat versus Republican, I want to get back to arguing about right versus wrong. And I believe that somewhere along the way, that is where we lost our way as a nation. And we have lost our way because we are so political party driven that we want our party to win. And I think, and this is not just Republicans, Democrats and Republicans. I'm preaching to everybody, even though I doubt any Republicans are listening to me. But American politics shouldn't be like a football game. These are people's lives. These are jobs. This is medicine. This is aid. This is healthcare. This is Social Security. This is civil rights. This is equal rights. This is not a winner takes. It shouldn't be a winner takes all. So along the way, I really do genuinely hope that at some point we can get back to right versus wrong and rebuild as a nation. Now, with that said, do I see that happening in the next 4 years? Probably not. But I do have hope for the next. Let me take that back. I think within the next 2 years, if we as progressives and as a Democratic Party and as liberals get our stuff together, we can have some big wins. But my big fear, and I like to start off by saying, don't at me because I won't respond, and I don't do good with threats. We have to, as a community, as a people, learn to listen more than we talk. And leading up to this election, there were so many warning signs that things weren't quite right. And we had a lot of, as I like to call them, the elite liberals, the limousine liberals, telling us to be quiet, cast the vote, and shut up about it. And those people that were told to be quiet and cast the vote and shut up about it stayed home. I've been saying this for the last 2 weeks, are some of the voters in America racist? Yeah. Are some of the voters in America misogynist? Absolutely. Are some of the voters in America strong conservatives that will never vote for a Democrat as long as they live? Absolutely. But we really need to focus on that 14 to 15 million that stayed home. And those people are the people that I believe tried to give us those warning signs. And we kept saying, but look at Trump. Look at Trump. That is not enough to get folks off of a couch. People don't leave a couch or leave whatever to vote against someone. They leave to vote for someone. And do I think Vice President Harris was the person to vote for? Absolutely. I would do it again and again and again. But what I also did on my little journey through this little thing called life, as Prince would say, is I listened to people. Something, and I didn't talk about this, I did an 18-city tour where I went to 18 cities, either in person or via Zoom, and I talked to marginalized voters, in particular LGBTQ voters. And that's where I got those warning signs. I had a call with a really good friend of mine. Her name is Candace Adams, and I hope she's listening. Best circuit court clerk in the state of Illinois. Love you, Candace Adams. And I talked to her, and I said, I don't think this is going to happen, and this is why I don't think it's going to happen. And we had that conversation 2 weeks before the election because we were both listening to people and not lecturing. actually listening to people. So I hope over the next 2 years, because we have midterms coming up, and we have a chance to possibly flip the Senate, take back the Congress. But I implore each and every one of you, now is not the time to lecture people. And we're going to get back into this later because I have my own personal experience within my own little suburban community that I will talk about. But we cannot push marginalized people out of our party. We have to have them to vote. And the Democratic Party needs all of us. It needs marginalized people. It needs the working class. It needs some of our upper class. It needs white voters, black voters, Latino voters, Asian voters. We need all the voters. And where I find, especially at a local suburban level, is that we are pushing those people away. And that has we'll talk about that later. I think we have a caller.
It's break.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, we don't, so I'm just going to keep talking.
Break.
Oh, I'm being yelled at as a break. I don't follow directions. Well, I'm going to get off my soapbox and take a break. I'll be back soon.
Driving it home with Patti Vasquez, Patti Vasquez. From global conflicts to greenhouse gases, the folks refusing to wear masks says, and politicians getting caught grabbing asses says, she's driving it home with Patti Vasquez.
Welcome back. This is Ken Mejia-Beal, and you are listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez. And I'm here, Ken Mejia-Beal. Thank you for tuning in to WCPT 820 AM Progressive Radio, or thank you for joining us on Heartland Signal. Listen to Driving It Home weekdays from 5 to 7 p.m. at 8:20 a.m. on TuneIn from heartlandsignal.com, or watch the live video stream on WCPT's Facebook or X pages, waving at you right now. You can also tell Alexa to play WCPT from TuneIn. Thank you, Alexa. Now we have a guest coming up. We're going to talk a little bit about the environment. We're going to talk a little bit, hopefully, about some fashion. We're going to talk a little bit about a lot with the wonderfully charming Jordan Parker, founder of the Triveni Institute. I always say English is my worst language and my only language, so I'm batting 1,000 today. Jordan, how's it going?
Great. Hi, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing today?
Really well. I love gloomy days. I love rainy days.
That is very surprising because you are one of the most chipper people that I know. So that we have to dig into that one night over a bottle of wine or 7, if you're okay with that.
Yes, absolutely. You've seen more of my social self, so there are a few different sides.
Got it. Okay, well, I would like to meet them all. Jordan, thank you for joining us. I really want to get into can you pronounce the Institute? Because I don't want to mispronounce it anymore.
Yeah, so it's a Sanskrit word. So people pronounce it different ways. None of them are wrong. I say Triveni.
Triveni. Well, I'm going to say what you say because you're the founder. Triveni Institute. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited to be here. I didn't even know you did this. This is great.
I do it all. I change oil. I can repair your brakes. I can.
You do.
Can walk in your fashion show.
Yes, and we will get to that.
Yes, we will.
So what we're doing with Triveni Institute is we're trying to change the narrative about our environmental issues, because we're not really talking about the fact that we're actively destroying the habitability of the planet. Mm-hmm. We're just kind of going about our lives, business as usual. I go to lots of parties, lots of events, and it doesn't come up. And we're just kind of partying the world into extinction right now. So I'm like, okay, I understand why. I mean, talking about extinction, talking about pollution, waste, the climate crisis, corporate greed, capitalism, how we can all, be a part of it on an individual basis. These are really heavy conversations.
They are.
Denialism is a really effective coping strategy. So I think a lot of people are just kind of like, I don't even know what I can do about that as an individual, and so I'm just not going to even go there. So I thought, why don't we just go with the flow? Since people love parties, let's have a big party.
Yeah.
let's have a big party and. Infuse some fashion into it, have an open bar, have a big party and talk about really serious problems.
Yes. And there's something, because I went to the Trash and Fashion show, which we will talk about, and there's something that you brought up that I had not thought about. And you were giving a speech. And you said, we always talk about recycling, but we don't talk about the reduce, reuse part.
Mm-hmm.
And that, it felt like you're telling me something I should know, but it zinged me because I never think about not really the reuse part, because I reuse everything. That's simply because I'm cheap. But I'm very cheap. But the reduce part is like, oh, I really could be reducing, which I have started doing, by the way. Be proud of me. But can you tell our listeners about that too?
Yeah. So I like to draw this analogy. Imagine you live in a one-bedroom apartment, which I do, in Chinatown. And what would your apartment look like if everything that came into it couldn't leave? You couldn't remove your trash. You couldn't open your windows. What if you had a big party, since we're on the party theme, and people brought over red Solo cups and trays from Costco, and you have that group of friends that likes to smoke, and so they're in a corner smoking? What would happen to your environment? What would happen to your apartment if all of the trash that you produced had to stay in it? And that is exactly what's happening to our entire planet, because we're an enclosed system and we just have this one tiny thin layer of atmosphere that makes all of life possible. But every bit of trash and pollution we're creating is staying within the system. So our oceans are becoming landfills. Our landfills are maxing out. Illinois is going to run out of landfill space in 8 years. We're going to have to be shipping our garbage in big, fossil fuel burning trucks to Wisconsin and Indiana and, out of state. It's
wow.
Crazy what's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
So, yeah. So I like to draw that analogy. It makes it accessible. If I couldn't just take out the garbage and all of that was piling up inside my apartment, it would be a disaster in days or weeks.
Right.
So this is why we have to reduce. We have to look at all of the solid waste, the air pollution, the waste that's going into our water systems. We have to look at that and we have to reduce it. We can't just recycle our way out of these problems. But that's what the plastics industry has perpetuated for decades, this myth that plastics can be recyclable.
And after talking to you and meeting you, because I know we all have work to do. So my partner lives like a block away from a Whole Foods. And I would go there and grab like a pint of ice cream, maybe a jug of water, put it in the bag, walk back to his place and go, I'm doing well because I walked. And after talking to you, I realized I don't need a bag. I can literally put the ice cream in my jacket pocket and carry the jug of water. And that is so easy. And it just didn't click for me that I didn't need the bag. And I think that's part of the reducing part is I don't need it. I can carry it. Or I already have something. Or like using the reusable bags. There's so many things that we could be doing that until it kind of sticks in our head, we don't do, because it's a habit.
Right.
It's a habit.
Yes. Yeah, and these little actions seem so trivial. I've been hearing for years, like, really, we're talking about plastic bags when there are so many more important issues, really, bottled water.
Yeah.
But like one of my favorite quotes is, "It's just a bottle of water," said 8 billion people. There are 8 billion people on this planet, and so if we are all using bottled water, we're all using plastic bags, we're all buying a bunch of disposable crap and throwing it, quote, away, like that adds up fast to a really huge waste problem. So it's kind of like voting. You know, people will say, well, my vote doesn't matter. Well, if everybody said that, there would be no elections.
Fair. Fair and true.
Yeah.
Well, something that I know that you wanted to discuss, and it's a topic that we've never discussed, so we're going to tread into surprise territory here, is gender and how questioning the gender binary is an important factor in addressing environmental issues. And
yeah, thanks for bringing this up. Yeah,
like, let's get into that because I'm mind blown, so go for it.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks. So, the gender binary is obviously, you know, all human beings are categorized into one of two boxes. You're either a male or a female. You're a boy or a girl, man or a woman. And when we're born, our sexual organs dictate our gender. That's how it's been since the beginning of time, basically. So you're born with specific genitalia, either, you know, male sex, female sex, or intersex. And that's another discussion. If you're born intersex, you traditionally have had to conform to either male or female.
One or the other.
One or the other. But we have this binary, that is based on our sexual anatomy at birth. And that gender you're assigned determines the entire rest of your life. The doors that are closed, the doors that are open. So one of the problems right there that I see with the gender binary is if one gender has a lot of privilege over the other, you're going to have a lot of incompetence in leadership because a lot of people got there based on their genitalia at birth.
Got it.
So that's one issue with leadership. But how it relates to the planet is we have this gender binary with our planet and environment. How many times have you heard Father Earth? Zero?
Never.
Right?
No, never.
So, right, never. We feminize and gender the planet as Mother Earth is something, it's gentle, it's nurturing, we need to take care of it, but it's okay if we abuse it. And then mankind is dominant. So mankind is strong, powerful. We bend nature to our will, and nature is feminine and weak and succumbs to our will. So that's a huge problem when it comes to environmental issues.
Well, let me say this because I want everyone to absorb that for a moment because I need a moment. I never thought about it that way. I never once thought about it that way.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of mind blown.
Yeah. I think it's one of the things we do with our shows is we talk about these really complex issues, like the environment and our role in it. But we also talk about like what's the connection between racism and sexism and speciesism. And all of those systems have the same model. There's an oppressive group of people who believe that they're superior, and all of the other people who are not in that group should be dominated. and told what to do. So speciesism is humanity saying, okay, we are the top species here, and we can do whatever we want with all the other species on the planet. And you just look at factory farming, and it's abhorrent what's happening to animals that we don't see. We just see them show up in our grocery stores. And, hey, I love meat. I love eating meat. I love chicken. I love sushi. I love eating meat. I'm not afraid to say that.
Jordan.
Yeah.
I want you, if you can, because we're getting somewhere, I want you to put a pin in it. We're going to go on break. Would you mind staying with us when we get back?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you, Jordan. We'll be back.
Hey, it's Patty here, reminding you that Monaco Brewing Company's progressive beers like MAGA Tears IPA, Biden Beer, and the LGBTQ-inspired Love Wins Fruited Sour are now available at Chicagoland locations like Armanetti Wine and Spirits in Woodstock, Beer Shop in Oak Park, McLean Liquors in South Elgin, Beer on Central in Evanston, and My Buddies, a pride-friendly bar on Clark in Chicago. Don't forget to drink and vote responsibly.
You're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez.
In your communities, in Chicago.
On WCPT 820.
Thank you. We are back. This is Ken Mejia-Beal and filling in for Patti Vasquez for Driving It Home on WCPT 820 AM Chicago Progressive Radio, Heartland Signal. We are back with Jordan Parker, founder of the Triveni Institute, who is dropping some knowledge bombs on us right now. Jordan, thank you so much for I'm live in the studio and we're both just looking at each other like, mind blown. And I will tell you, there's no 420 going on in here. We're just open to this. So none.
Huge fan.
Oh, same. So continue.
Oh, okay. So, I was talking about how much I actually love meat.
Yes.
And I think most of us do, but...
Not I, Jordan. Not I, but continue. I'm doing good on that end. Are you a vegetarian? I'm a pescatarian, but let's not talk about me. We'll get back to you.
Okay. Well, I fish. I love sushi. But all of these things all of these choices we make every day collectively have a big impact on the planet. And this is the hardest challenge, I think, to us solving our environmental issues is we're going to have to make some hard choices about how we're living our lives. And it's really, really hard to say, well, maybe we shouldn't eat as much meat. Maybe we shouldn't drive as much. Maybe we shouldn't take as many flights. Maybe we shouldn't have a third kid. All of these choices that we have that we've just, had the luxury of having up until this time. Now we're faced with the fact that collectively 8 billion people on the planet all making these different choices is having a huge impact on whether or not life can survive here.
Well, it's funny you say that. Something I recommend to all of my friends for the environment and for health and wellness overall is if you are someone who eats meat, taking a week off, like a month, won't kill you. Like, you'll be fine. You'll get through it. And it helps a lot of things. And that's a whole other conversation for another day. But kidneys actually work so much better when they don't have to process meat. And that's not just me saying that. That's the actual, I believe it takes, they work harder, if I'm not mistaken. So that's very, very important. So, yeah, a week off a month or maybe a week off every other month. If all 8 billion of us did that, oh, my God.
Oh, my gosh. Can you imagine? Yes. And I'm not completely meat-free, but my events are.
Yes, they are.
I have decreased my meat consumption by 80%, I would say, in the last few years. So, yeah, and it's not all or nothing either. I think a lot of people think, like, I'm I have to be black or white, right? Like
Right.
I have to either eat meat all the time or never eat meat. And
No.
it's like, no, you don't have to be perfect.
No.
You can just make different choices that are a little bit more aligned with your role
Yes.
as a global citizen at this time.
And I guess because I'm not, but I have friends who are like, how do you, like, I have to have meat with every meal. It's like, I mean, you don't. It's not necessary. But something you mentioned that I want to get into, because you have I want to say, exclusive announcement here today. Speaking of your event, can we talk about that?
Yeah.
Okay, because I was going to say, if you say no, you put me in a real bad situation. So let's talk about what we're going to talk about that no one else knows about. Let's talk about it.
Yes. This is the first time we are announcing this. So we've had 3 shows so far. We've had 2 Trash and Revolution shows that are our annual marquee event.
Mm-hmm.
That's our big event. We had the first one in May of last year, the second one in July of this year you came to.
Yes.
And we're having our third one in July of next year. We'll continue on with the July schedule. And the theme of our first show was Be the Light. And that it's not any more relevant than it is right now in periods of darkness. We have to have people out there who are the light.
Yes, absolutely.
So that was the theme for the first show. The second show in July the theme was Awaken.
Mm-hmm.
And we had kind of a beautiful garden palette, in our show, and the designs were amazing. So we have a different theme for next year.
Okay.
And I'm announcing it right now.
Yay.
It is modern mythology.
Oh, I'm excited.
Yeah. I am super excited about this theme. I cannot wait to see what the designers come up with for this. And that, we have right now we have kind of a hyper masculine promo, and that's on purpose to talk about that binary. Like, is it not masculine to take care of the planet? Like, we want to start those. Yeah, we want to start those conversations. So we have these, kind of godlike, hyper-masculine figures on our promos, and we're going to be releasing those this week. But we also want to talk about modern mythology. Like, what are some modern myths that we've all just kind of bought into? You mentioned one like, I need to have meat every meal to be nourished.
Yep.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Really? Do we?
You don't.
You don't. Right. We don't. I mean, meat a few times a week works really well for some people. Some people thrive without it at all.
Yep.
Another myth that, like I mentioned in our last show, is plastic is recyclable. Plastic is not recyclable. So that is a modern myth. At best, plastic is downcyclable. Downcycling means you take an object and you make it into another object of higher value, equal or higher value, one time. That's downcycling. So a lot of our plastics, if they do get, quote, recycled, they're made into park benches, decking, lawn furniture, things that are permanent objects that are going to be around forever, and you can't do anything with them at the end of the life of that object. So that's downcycling.
This. And if it's okay, I would still like to be a model in this show, because now
you are in.
Well, I was going to be in, but now I'm like, oh yeah, I'm in. I'm 100% in. So super excited. Before I let you go, Jordan, where can people go to find you so that they can buy tickets and sponsor and come see me wearing a loincloth? I'm already calling it. I'm joking. Or maybe I'm not. I don't know. Let me take that back.
No, you know that's going to be happening.
Yes!
I will make sure that happens.
Now I'm super excited.
Oh my gosh, I am super excited. So you will be one of our special invitation models.
Thank you.
And we had those in our last show. We had Alderwoman Lenny Manaugh-Hoppenworth.
Yes.
Alderwoman Haddon's lovely wife, Natalia.
Yes.
We had Speaker Welch's executive director, Takoya McConaughey.
Yes.
I mean, Yeah, so we're so excited to have you as one of our special invitation models.
I can't wait.
But people can find us. Yeah, people can find us on Instagram at Triveni Institute Foundation, and that's TRIVENI Institute Foundation. That's Instagram. Mm-hmm. And then TriveniInstitute.org is our website.
So, folks, go follow on Instagram. Check out the website. Get those tickets early. It's a fun night, and it's an open bar, and lots of attractive people modeling, plus me. So follow, do it. Jordan, thank you so much for gracing us with your beautiful, beautiful personality and making our dark evening a little bit better. I look forward to seeing you soon.
Likewise, Ken, it was such an honor and a pleasure. Thank you.
You're welcome, and we'll be back very soon.
Hey there, it's your guy, Warren Price from European and U.S. Collision Repair, a division of Technicraft Body Shops. We specialize in automobile and truck repair as well as normal automobile maintenance. With our highly skilled technicians and environmentally friendly materials, we strive for quality. Call 773-248-1200. That's 773-248-1200 or EuropeanUS.com.
You're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez.
There's so much that goes on behind closed doors.
On WCPT 820.
Welcome back to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez. I am Ken Mejia-Beal, and thank you for tuning in to WCPT 820 AM Progressive Radio and Heartland Signal. If you haven't already, you can follow Heartland Signal on X, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and Threads at Heartland Signal, one word, and be sure to check heartlandsignal.com for daily updates. Sometimes I forget that I no longer am in Arkansas and I turn words into things that they shouldn't sound like. But speaking of strangers from other states, I have my friend Paul Aguilera on the line. He was a Harris delegate from Indiana, community organizer, and an Army veteran. Paul, how's it going tonight?
Ken, so good to hear from you. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic, buddy. How are you doing?
Good. Just another lovely day in paradise, or, what will soon be a dystopian future in 2025.
And let's just jump right in. And also, if you haven't grabbed your Minocqua Brewing beer, now's a good time to drink some Magateers. So, Paul, a little bit about, and this ties into kind of what we're going to talk about today. We met working on a campaign for Alderman Andre Vasquez. And I have to say you are one of the most realistic people I've ever met on the campaign trail. I've met a lot of people. I don't want to say you're Debbie Downer, because you're definitely not that, but you're very real, which is very genuine and hard to find in Illinois politics.
Just so many compliments coming out here. I have to say, I'm already blushing now. But no, man, isn't it? It's crazy how time flies, because you got to think that here we are coming up on 2025.
Yeah. Yet
again, a Trump presidency. God. I think when I first met Andre was in 2015.
Okay. Wow. Yeah.
And then you and I probably met in 2018.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, somewhere around there. So it's wild, just kind of treading these old paths and these same problems, or the same topics and the same kind of what's at the core of the soul of the Democratic Party, and like what are people going to run on and actually win. So I come from a very working class family background. I come from a very working class area. I'm from Northwest Indiana, which is called the Region. I'm a very proud region rat, very proud of that. So much that I moved overseas for a while. And I had a chance, like economically, I could have moved to any major city I wanted, but I chose to actually move out of Chicago and back over the border into Northwest Indiana because I wanted to get involved here.
I love that. And honestly, I have thought about at some point moving back to Arkansas, and then I wake up and say, never mind. So the fact that you've actually followed through But I will say the work that you're doing in Indiana, we need you there. So don't ever leave. But something you touched on that we're going to talk about is talking to the soul of the Democratic voter a little bit. And in particular, our Latino voters. Could you give us just a little insight into where we're going to start this conversation off?
Well, yeah, Latino voters specifically.
Yes.
I think. So here's a question that it's not just about Latino voters either. It's about working class voters and it's left of center voters that I think people need to start posing to themselves and maybe just have a moment of reflection. Has the majority of the Democratic Party, or at least a large portion of it, been voting with the party in favor of a lot of its policy platform planks or in spite of them for the last, say, 20 years since Clinton left office, if you want to say that. Okay. And a lot of Latino voters, for a lot of time, we have a Latino voter turnout problem in Northwest Indiana.
Got it.
And it's for a long time, Democrats took that voting base for granted, like very obviously. There was a lot of patriotism in that community, a lot of government employees, firemen, police, and they knew if they supported the Democratic mayor, they would just show up, their jobs would be safe, and they'd be taken care of. But as soon as the machine falls apart, all that stuff goes away, and they're like, why do I keep showing up for these people? And my life just keeps getting worse.
Right.
And I'm gonna pause right there if you have any questions, because that actually touches on something we'll talk about later.
Well, no, I mean, you can't see me, but I literally am sitting here with my hand on my chin in the thinking pose. So you just keep going.
Yeah.
We're all soaking it in.
So, I mean, what I just boiled it down to on the local level here is where did we lose Latino voters? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of layers to it. There's a lot of layers to all of this, like why Trump is back in office, and that'll be studied for decades, generations, whatever. But essentially, it's that simple. Is like in the last 4 years, we are very, very show me the money people, show me the results people, very common sense. In the last 4 years, if you ask the average person, working class person, has your life improved as far as dollars as in kitchen table, hey, what can we spend money on? Do we have money to go out on the weekend? The answer is no.
Correct.
And in the Latino community, the entire time we've been in this country, or the entire time our family has been here, we've been told you need to vote Democrat because the Republicans hate you. And they've done it loyally and consistently, and we can talk about certain priorities of the Democratic Party focusing on certain identity issues that a conservative Latino family will never identify with. But really, pragmatically, 4 years ago, they were giving stimulus checks, and, a carton of eggs was $1 in certain neighborhoods. And 4 years later, it's $4 for a carton of eggs, and they're not getting stimulus checks anymore.
So I want to touch on that really quickly, because you and I, oh God, I almost sounded like one of the elitists that I don't like. So let me backtrack that a little bit, because I am totally not an elitist. I'm not. But one of the
get me the East Coast coastal.
I know, that's totally not me. You've seen me eat chicken fingers and French fries. It ain't pretty. But what happens is, and by chicken fingers I mean vegan chicken fingers for those cake and score. Mm-hmm. But what happens is, the stimulus check is not a good thing. That means something bad has happened. What can Democrats do in the messaging better by relaying to voters, you got a stimulus check because things were real bad, and it's not a good thing? You know what I mean?
I think for a person who was already struggling, it's too late to try to educate them about the complexities of market stimulus and how that'll eventually create inflation, right?
Okay.
So if you're talking to an impoverished person who is already struggling, and all of a sudden they're getting, they're already on Link, they're already on EBT, mm-hmm. and all of a sudden they're getting stimmies in their bank account, and then you take them away, as soon as the next president comes in and mysterious, they were going to end, but all of a sudden they stopped getting those stimulus checks. They're going to blame the person in office. It's unfortunate, but this is the power of perception is always outweighs reality.
And that is true. And, I'm going to end the show we're not ending it now, folks. Do not leave. But I'm going to tell a little bit about something that happened to me down in Austin, Texas. But for you, what can Democrats do better? And before you even begin, I have to say this because I get visibly irritated when folks say the Democrats did everything right and you can't be hard on us. And it's like, oh my God, 15 million people stayed home. I have to keep saying that. So now that I've gotten that out of the way so nobody's adding me on any kind of social media, what can the Democrats do better in the future moving forward to promote better economic messaging?
Well, the party as a general needs to get back to focusing on kitchen and table issues that people understand, and then when they're in power, actually executing on those things rather than getting distracted by the issue of the moment. We've had so many times during so many administrations where we were legally in power and we could have made people's lives instantly better and simply chose not to just because there were other interests at hand, and that's fine. What Donald Trump is probably going to do is the same thing he did last time. He's going to get in office. He's going to give the middle working class a small, short-term tax break and then a huge permanent tax break to the rich, and everyone's going to remember it. Now, I will say Democrats on the national level need to start looking to the heartland, to Democrats winning in Trump areas like Indiana State Rep Districts 12, 10, and 9. Those representatives were just running in areas heavily Republican, and they all just won their seats back. And these are local representatives, local state representatives, Democrats to the core, but they focus on issues that people actually care about and that appeal to everything. They're friends to unions, obviously, but also to first responders, who include police. So we need to start taking back some of that ground and some of those issues that we are, right now, if you ask a Midwestern person living in the suburbs, they think the Democratic Party is the party of, ACAB, of defund the police. So that's still something that's out there. We need to start changing that conversation and taking back those policy positions. How do we start? You've got to start talking to people that you vehemently disagree with on a cellular level. You've got to start going into neighborhoods and places that you actually might be afraid to. People need to start listening and hearing more often. And I say that really, all the time. I just said that 10 minutes ago, but continue. Yeah. You just we really have to. There are people in Chicago, I guarantee you, have never spoken to a Republican and never would if they were given a chance. There are people in Indiana, in rural Indiana, who've never spoken to a Democrat and probably will never speak to a Democrat had been given the chance. But somewhere in there, we just got plain folks who maybe don't understand an issue and aren't afraid to admit they don't understand it. Or maybe they don't understand an issue and they're not afraid to talk about it. And those are the people that we need to be engaging. But right now, everyone is so divided that nobody's leaving the cities. I should not be a unique person. I want all our friends from Chicago to move to Northwest Indiana or actually Central Indiana, and we gotta blow this place up. Because really, when Democrats talk to real people about core democratic values, we win every time because we also 100%. Yeah, and 100%. That's where we need to rebuild from. And it also helps, and I don't know the socioeconomic background of the folks that won in those districts, but I think it probably helps if we have more working class folks running for office. Is that a fair assessment? Yeah, in this area, you've got a mix. Indiana's hard because while in Illinois they pay the local elected officials a decent wage, especially for the areas they run in. Indiana, they very much are. It's like a stipend and very much considered a real part-time job, not like a fake part-time job like it is in Illinois. So you end up with a lot of lawyers in office or maybe people that are palm tree just fell out of your mouth. So let's. Wow. But continue. I'm going to let you continue. I've acknowledged the shade. We're going to keep on going.
Go for it.
No, it's not shit. You know why? Because I'll tell you what, there are so many people in Indiana that would run for office if they paid their state senators, local representatives just a little bit more, because they currently cannot support themselves on the stipend that politicians make. And I'm talking about state reps,
I get it,
stuff like that. Yeah.
So
we
because I agree with you, we have. I mean, when the person, take away everything we know about politics, take it all away. When the person who is connecting most with working class voters lives in a penthouse in Manhattan with a gold toilet, we're not doing something right. And I don't know if he has a gold toilet, but he does have a lot of gold in his Manhattan apartment. I mean, he literally has a compound. So, but we've done something wrong somewhere that we've lost that.
It's mostly not walking the walk, or not executing on what we say our platform is when we're in office, right? How many candidates have to give you their entire backstory, coming up from an impoverished upbringing, and telling you about their tragic backstory and their what's in it for them, why they're running. And then they get into office and they don't actually do anything for working class people. One of the number one things people said post-Obama was, I expected Barack Obama to come in office and really a lot of change happen. And 8 years later, I was actually still worse off, and I don't feel like he did enough for the black community. And then they turned around and voted for Trump. So most of the people, and I don't like saying ignorant people. It's not ignorance. People chose to vote for Trump for a whole lot of reasons. Whoa. But for let's say a disengaged voter, Trump represents just another option, a completely different person from the normal politician of each party.
Correct.
And they continue to choose the chance for change, or the chance for something different.
And I will say, because the word ignorant has gotten a negative connotation, the total definition, Merriam-Webster, is just a person who does not know.
Right.
It's not as negative. It does sound negative, but I think, we do have, we're all ignorant about certain things. So, but I hear you, and changing that conversation is going to be very important, especially over the next 2 years. That's why we have to start talking about it now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll leave you with this thing of why are these people voting for Trump? I don't understand. I live in a town with an oil refinery in it, and I'm probably straight line distance, 1 mile, 2 miles from several steel mills, right? So when I go to my local bars out here, these are all working class guys. They're all just getting off shift. And I can't tell you the amount of time, and this is common, we've heard this before, the amount of time these guys will tell me, in 2016 or 2015, I was a Bernie guy. And he lost, and then I voted for Trump.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot too, actually.
It goes back to a want for change in our political process and our political representation at the highest levels, without really understanding the implications.
Gotcha. I can't disagree with you. Well, Paul, I want to thank you for giving us your wisdom and your insight, and taking a little time to talk to us about this, because I know is something that means a lot to you and it means a lot to our listeners, and we're all trying to figure out what happened. So, as I keep saying, if you listen more and talk less, you can hear it. Whether you choose to receive it or not is a whole different story. But Paul, thank you for delivering.
Ken, thank you for I always love talking to you. I feel after I love venting, just texting you you know how I felt in the run up to the election, man. And
yes, I felt the same way.
Anytime you want to cut up about this stuff, either off air or offline.
Well,
absolutely.
We will do it off air, because both of us have mouths like truckers. So we are going to end it there. Thank you so much for calling in, Paul. And we will be back with the final minutes of Driving It Home.
You're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez.
In your communities, in Chicago.
On WCPT 820.
Welcome back. This is Ken Mejia-Beal, host, stepping in for Patti Vasquez, the irreplaceable Patti Vasquez, Driving It Home. Thank you for listening to WCPT 820 AM Progressive Radio, Heartland Signal. And now I'm going to finally get to that Austin story. So I'm in Austin, and I go to the state capitol. And they have a mural in the state capitol. And it's a picture of so many of the African-American members from, I want to get the years right, from 1898 to 1900. And a lot of these folks were former slaves, not well educated, whatever you want to say. And they made a change. And that had to be horrifying for them and scary. I can't imagine. But they did it. And they were ridiculed. They were criticized. They were cut down. But they did it. And on the way back from the state capitol, I'm walking back to my hotel room. And I see this mural. And it's a mural of so many of the recently lost Black Americans that were murdered. Trayvon Martin, Breonna, George Floyd, and Colin Kaepernick kneeling. And I had a moment of, I was supposed to see both of these things in this order, because it reminds me that I have to not give up. And the reason I talk about not giving up, I'm in the suburbs, and so many, especially Black and Latino voters in the suburbs, we are so not included in our party, and we're criticized and we're ridiculed and we're made fun of and we're pushed aside because our perception is different. And we're often written off because our complaints are quote unquote unfounded. And they're unfounded because we're being judged not by a jury of our peers. We're being judged by folks that are looking down at us. And how I'm going to bring this home. Democrats. We have folks that stayed home not because they don't give a damn, but because they've been pushed to a place where they can't. And I'll be honest, I've been there. This cycle for me was very hard, touring the 18 cities and then coming back, being treated so well in other cities, and then coming back to the suburbs and being treated like trash. I'm going to just be polite and say like trash, because my viewpoint, my life perception is so different. And I finally got to a place today. I have a group of maybe 5 or 6, as I like to call them, super fans that like to watch everything I do and criticize and write giant posts about how horrible I am. And I used to let it get to me. But after seeing those former slaves that went to the Texas House and kicked some major you-know-what, and seeing that mural, I am so indifferent to criticism because those people are not my demographic. So as I sit here before you today, before we go home for the evening, I want Democrats to remember 2 things. The next 2 years are going to be make or break. We might not even get another election coming forward. I know that sounds like doomsday talk, but it could happen. If we don't play our cards right, the one thing that you don't want to do, especially in the suburbs, is get more Black and Latino voters to flip to Republicans. And that has nothing to do with the candidates. It has to do with the infrastructure. And that's something Paul and I, we've talked about off air. And I've talked about it off air with a lot of marginalized folks who are tired of going to ballots and there's not a person that looks like them or reflects their life. They are tired of knocking doors for folks that don't even say thank you. They are tired of working for elite politicians who don't understand the working class. And I am here trying my best to bring this 4 years that's going to be a nightmare, a little bit shorter, to 2 years, but it's going to take all of us. We have to be more tolerant and listen to voices and not automatically assume because something cannot be seen by you, it's not there. Because all of our lives are so different. And that we all have different lives. I've been in situations where someone will explain to me something that is happening to them, and I don't necessarily see it because I'm not attuned to seeing it. But people of color in this country have spoken on November 5th. The marginalized spoke, and they said, we are giving up on you the way you gave up on us. The marginalized, the working class, all of that. So we have to do better, pick up, start listening. And the last thing you want to do is ostracizing those that are coming to you with their perception, their reality, because reality and perception are very much the same. And I'm going to end you with this note. When folks are telling you that you have to unite for the party without even mentioning the people within the party, that is a problem. I am a Democrat because of my values and my integrity. I am not a Democrat because of other politicians. And I'm going to let you marinate on that. And I thank you for joining me this evening, for driving it home. And I look forward to seeing you and talking to you again very soon. Tune in tomorrow. It's going to be another great day, another great show. Have a great evening.